Hello, Grissom Choir. This is Music Theory Level 2.3 Review. Main concept in this review is intervals. So an interval is a distance between two notes. So there's several different kinds of intervals, that we may have. Some of those that are already written here: a fifth, a second, a fourth. There's also a third, a sixth, a seventh, and then also what's written down here, an octave we call an eighth, or an eighth we call an octave. So if I get my pencil drawn up right here, we can talk about these different intervals. So interval-wise, you always count the bottom note as one, and then you do not skip any lines and you do not skip any spaces when doing so. So let's look at this first one right here, the first example that's already given to us. So naming the intervals and drawing the given notes. This would be called a fifth because we count this first note as one. Oh, that is way too big. Let's make that a little bit smaller. We count this first note as one. This first space is one. The line right above that would be two, followed by the next space being three, the next space being four, and then this next space being five. And I accidentally said space on four. That's actually a line on four. So that would be the interval of a fifth because there are 5 lines/spaces in between. Using that knowledge, we can then go on to this second example right here. If we count this first note as 1, that first line would be 1, which means this space would be 2. This line would be 3. This space would be 4. This line would be 5. This space would be 6. Which means this next line where the note is would be 7, meaning that this interval from a G all the way up to an F is a seventh. We can go on to the next example. We count the bottom note as 1, so this would be 1. And since this is on a ledger line, that means that this space right here would be 2, creating an interval of a third because that note is on the first line, meaning this would be a C up to an E. The C up to an E is a third. This next example right here, this first note we count as 1, and since this entire exercise right here is just one note above, so we would go 2, that means that this interval would be a second. Going on to this next exercise, we would count this note as 1, 2, 3, 4. This space above the top line would be 5. This first ledger line 6. This space above the ledger line 7, which means that this interval from a C up to a C, going up to the very next note, would be an eighth. So this you could either call an eighth or an octave. This last example right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's what that note is on, so we would call this interval a sixth. Likewise, it can also be done backwards. Not backwards as if going down below the note, but let's say we were given the first note, but not given the interval, or not given, both notes, and you are trying to find the note above when it gives you the interval. So let's say, this first example, it's wanting you to do a seventh. So you would do the exact same process, count this note as 1, next line would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which means the space above this top line is that seventh. So then you would just draw the note right there, and that is an interval of a seventh. This next exercise, let's say that it wanted us to do a second above, and on the test it will give you the interval that you are supposed to be drawing, that the test wants you to draw. So a second above this note, 1, 2, be that next line, so you draw that note right there on the line, and that's the interval of a second. let's say this was a third on the test. Then you'd count this note as 1. This space would be 2. This line would be 3. And so you just draw the note on that line. It would create a third. Let's call this a fourth right here. So you count this note as 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom, there's our fourth. And this last one, let's say it was unison. Let's say the test said that it wanted to be unison. Well, unison is the exact same note. Boom, there's your unison note. And that is everything on theory level 2.3. One big concept that can be split up into 2 ways of doing it. So make sure that you review this as well as everything below it. Music theory level 1.1 all the way up to 2.2, and you should be good to go for the test.